Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Green Bay Football Show with the great John Dodds. I'm Tom Pippins. We can't wait to get it to you, and we want to tell you right away that it doesn't happen without our marvelous sponsor, Business Fitness. And Dave Heineck, just outstanding in every sense of the word, a good sheep's head buddy of John Dodds. So I need to say more, but we do want you to check out Business Fitness.
We weave NetSuite into the DNA of your business. There are many threads in your organization. Over time, some become tangled. When NetSuite is woven in as your primary business system, the overall fabric becomes smoother, stronger, and more flexible. We at Business Fitness are a NetSuite success agency. With decades of NetSuite experience across hundreds of clients ranging from 3 users to billion-dollar enterprises, we love what we do. Whether we're helping you implement NetSuite for the first time or helping you improve how it works for your company, our focus is our relationship with you and ensuring you get the most from your software. It all starts by us listening. We get to know you and your organization. We seek to understand the good things you are committed to accomplishing. And together, we create an amazing tapestry, one that serves your entire company, allowing you and your business to thrive at this unique moment in history. This is possible because we're an ambidextrous organization. We see the big picture and the details, enabling us to serve you in both creative and strategic ways. Contact us now to schedule a conversation. We'd love to help you weave NetSuite into the DNA of your business.
Doesn't get any better when it comes to analyzing the Packers draft than Colin Linsey. Great Blue North Draft Report, another connection from you, JD, and he's just the best when it comes to this kind of thing.
I discovered him in the late 90s. He was on my radio show. We did draft shows live in the early 2000s. We did a podcast with Colin. He's just terrific. Encourage people to, every day in the college football season, to check out his site. He has updates, injury updates, scouting updates. It's a great site.
Colin, take it away, thanks to Business Fitness. The Packers draft overall, what did you think of it? They decide to go defense with the first couple of picks and wait to jump up in the second round to get their receiver.
Yeah, it was a pretty solid draft all around. I think people were a little bit surprised maybe they didn't go for the wide receiver early on. Got a couple of very good players from that great Georgia defense with their first 2 picks. I thought they did a real nice job fixing up the interior, the offensive line. With 3 really solid picks later on. I thought the draft was saved for them. Maybe the hero of the Packers draft was the general manager over in Minnesota, who traded that early second round pick. Allowed you to take Christian Watson, who I think is the key to this draft. If he can, in any way, shape, or form, replace Devontae Adams, it's going to be a success. And I don't think you're going to get any player of that quality. A little bit later on in the draft, but all around a solid draft for the Packers. As I said, I'm a little surprised that maybe they didn't go a little bit more offensively in the first round. Walker and Wyatt are good players. They're not impact players, though. They don't really impact the game. And they're more complementary players. Very good players. Don't get me wrong, and they're going to make your defense better. But I'm not sure I would have taken either right there. But as I say, very good players, and great pedigrees, and they make your defense better. And, getting Watson. Also throw in Dubes, the receiver from. They got in the later round, and he's also a good, solid player. But a solid draft for the Packers. Nothing spectacular, maybe, unless Watson really jumps up and stars. At the same time, you really didn't see much from Minnesota at all. Hard to imagine that they closed the gap on the Packers. I think the question you might have is, have the Packers closed the gap, or stayed even with some of the other really good teams around the NFC and certainly in the AFC when it comes down to winning championships.
I'm interested to hear John's take with you as you go together, because John has called Christian Watson a combination of Jordy Nelson and MVS, who went where, to Kansas City, right, John?
Yeah,
got his 3 years and
yes.
$30 million. Good for him. You mentioned him as the key to the draft. How good a pro will this kid be, at least as you're sitting here in May of 2022, long before the start of the regular season, even training camp?
Well, I love the kid. I don't know if it's a heresy to say it, but I'm a Giants fan, and the Packers broke my heart when they took him where they did. The Giants were picking two picks later. They maybe even had a bigger need at wide receiver, and I was hoping like heck that Watson would get in there. Interesting, he's a FCS kid, didn't play big time football. He's a big player. He has real nice size. He's got terrific speed. He's a great athlete. Maybe not the greatest route runner out there, but he's the kind of kid who's going to go up and battle for contested balls. He's also really, really good after the catch. And you wonder, had he played at Ohio State or Southern California, uh, there's a possibility that he would have gone way, way higher. And I had somebody even who's got some connections to the NFL who told me just before the draft, he said, "Hey, don't be surprised if this kid goes top 10." Obviously, he didn't. But there's an awful lot of talent there. And as I say, he's got size, he's got speed, he's a competitive kid. And it's just, can he do it now when you get on the field in the National Football League? But he certainly has all the tools coming in.
Yeah, Colin, it was interesting that the Packers traded up. They traded 53 and 59 in the second round to go up to 34, as you said, to Minnesota. And if the Packers would have, and this is 2020 hindsight, if the Packers would have stayed at those picks, they probably would have had the Pickens, the wide receiver from Georgia. They could have done a little bit to get him, and also Pierce from Cincinnati. And but it seems like in terms of ceiling, Watson is the guy more than those guys.
Yeah, I mean they would have been good prospects at that point in time if you ended up not making that deal. But they're not in the same class, I don't think, as a Christian Watson. Christian Watson to me was a special player in this draft. You don't find guys with that kind of ability that often, and it probably related to the fact that he didn't play Division One with a top program. Getting him was a real coup. I was a little bit surprised they didn't take him at least at 28. You could have made the case to take him at 22. But obviously they gambled there, and as I say, they got two good players there. But again, he is the guy that to me is the key to this draft. He has the potential to be a really, really good player, and if that develops with Aaron Rodgers there, you got yourself a steal.
One of the rules we always have in our draft coverage is, over the years, I've come to the conclusion there are certain positions that drop, they fall. Non-elite quarterbacks will fall because why? Ron Wolf used to say, why do you spend 3 years grooming them and they just leave for someone else? So someone like Willis, the quarterback who was top 6 in some mock drafts, fell very late. Running backs always fall, it seems, because there's just no need for them anymore. And wide receivers usually fall because there's so many of them. You can get a Donald Driver for Packer fans in round 7, and there's a lot of wide receivers to be had. But this was an unusual year. It just seemed like that the receivers went early.
Well, first of all, I think you're right. Up until literally this year, that wide receiver was not a premium position. Problem at wide receiver has always been that you really need 2 or 3 guys who are good, as opposed to maybe just that one elite player, one elite quarterback, one elite edge rusher could really change things around. But certainly in the National Football League the last year, wide receiver has suddenly blossomed as a elite position 1A now. You look at the teams that made the Final Four this year, and every one of them had an elite receiver. And in fact, there's probably a greater statistical correlation between really good teams and really good wide receivers uh, than even at quarterback. So, having that number one guy is suddenly really, really important. No surprise, I guess. I mean, we are talking about a passing league. So you had what? I think 6 of the top 18 players were wide receivers this year, and they were going sooner than people expected. Again, you still have those really good, solid second tier guys, and we talked a little bit about them. But I think over the next few years, you're going to see teams going for those top wide receivers. The other thing is, we've had the Adams and Hill from Kansas City who are coming up on free agency. Debo Samuel out in San Francisco. Uh, their market price is crazy. I mean, it's starting to look like quarterback money, and teams are going to that have those guys are now going to be faced with the dilemma: do we pay that money to keep the guy when we still need 3 or 4 wide receivers to be effective? Or do we try and keep the pipeline going so that when our guy reaches that period when he's going to be getting $40 million a year, we can pass that on to somebody else and have another really good quality receiver to come along. It's really going to be fascinating to watch how the wide receiver situation plays out in the National Football League over the next 2 or 3, 4 years.
I think we had Wayne Larrivee on about a year ago on the podcast, and he was saying that as soon as a quarterback earns 14% of the salary cap or more, your chances of winning and being successful and keeping your other players, it becomes more distant. And everybody points to Seattle with Russell Wilson. They had that great Legend of Boom defense, and then it seems like they paid Wilson the big money, which he deserved, but then they had to let them go, and they let their offensive line kind of go to pot at the same time. They didn't. You have to infuse with young talent. Now with wide receiver, I think Kansas City, Green Bay was going to offer Adams more money than the Raiders did. He wanted out. He wanted to play with his old college quarterback, and he wanted his family to have his mom to have greater access or proximity for home games. Mm-hmm. So he decided to leave, but when Kansas City, I think, made the decision that Tyreek Hill and Mahomes, it just didn't work, and Green Bay would have done that, but they would have had to have maybe let Campbell go and Rasul Douglas and several other players too. So. It's interesting if wide receivers get quarterback money, that's going to have salary cap ramifications.
Oh, it's going to be. I mean, I wouldn't want to be a National Football League general manager. It's a it'd be fun, but it's a horrible job with this salary cap and free agency and even the draft. I don't believe is what it used to be. As you said, I mean, for the most part, you're bringing in young kids, you develop them, and if they're any good after 4 years, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg to keep them. So you're really developing players for other teams. We just don't know at this point in time how all this is going to play out. But certainly it's making National Football League general managers' jobs all that much harder going forward.
Our special guest on the Green Bay Football Show is Colin Linsey. He's like Rodgers to Adams, hopefully Rodgers to Watson, and Adams said some really good things about Christian Watson kind of being the real deal. Colin from the Great Blue North Draft Report. Colin, it's been written that the Packers, instead of the best player available, focused more on need, particularly early on. Would you concur?
I would say so, and I think that there's a whole new way of thinking about this best player available and talent and stuff like that. As we said, you only get to keep the guy for 4 years. You know, when you guys and I, when we started in this business, you drafted a guy, you had him for his career, or at least as long as you wanted him, and you could build a foundation of a football team. You can't do that anymore. You know, the idea of bringing in a guy because he's the better player, even though he may not play for you for a whole 2 or 3 years, well, he's going to leave in 4 years anyway. So I think you're seeing teams going into the draft much more identifying the guys that they feel fit their system, fit their needs. They can bring them in, they can play them. You know, if they leave after 4 years, well, you know, you move from there. Yeah, I think there's a real definite change in the league. You're going to see a whole lot more teams picking uh, guys that fit their scheme and fit what they want to do, as opposed to, you know, just a kind of a, you know, really good player out there. We'll see what he can do for it when we bring him in. We're certainly going through again, and it's all tied to the salary cap. So kind of going through a revolutionary period in the league right now.
I try not to bring up the fact, because out of respect for Colin, who's a great Giant fan, that the Packers beat the Giants 2 years in a row in '61 and '62 for the championships, because he follows back with the Packers lost in 2007 and 2011
Manning, right? Yeah.
with Eli Manning. But the big hypothetical, at least in Wisconsin, is with the salary cap in 1961. Which of the 12 Hall of Famers of the Packers would you have kept? And that's Bart Starr, Paul Hornung, Jim Taylor, Ray Nitschke, Jim Ringo, Forrest Gregg, Willie Davis, Henry Jordan, Willie Wood. You know, your mind explodes when you think of that. And there was just something. That's why that'll never happen again. That Brady is the one exception, winning all those titles over the last 20 years or whatever, but he also had a very wealthy wife, and he was able to take a discount on his cap. So that was a big plus, but he also had a great coach and great general manager.
Yeah, and he, you know, obviously there was something about Tom Brady that he was just a really, really, really special player, that you did not need to surround him with great players for him to be good. I'm talking to a Patriots person at one point in time, and they said always with their program that they wanted two receivers that Tom was comfortable with on third down. Didn't have to be anybody special, but just somebody that he was comfortable throwing to on third down. And, you know, over his career, they really never had a whole lot of great wide receivers, but they had the tight ends, they had some running backs that they could catch passes, and a few possession receivers. But, you know, again, what Brady did in New England, it's just an anomaly to what we see right now. And I mean, you look at Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he has had a phenomenal career, and yet, you know what? You can tell me, won 2 Super Bowls. That's all. You know, same with Drew Brees, who was a terrific player with New Orleans. Peyton Manning only won a couple of Super Bowls. So yeah, it's really, really important having that great quarterback, but you know, you have to have other pieces, and yeah, Brady was really, really special.
Colin, I don't know if it's being too critical, but Aaron Rodgers has been average in the playoffs. You, of course, recall when John Elway won a couple of Super Bowls, they had a running game, they built around him a really good defense, and he did his part. Certainly Aaron Rodgers will never be a game manager, but do you see Brian Gutekunst and company maybe trying to build up that D, fortify the special teams? They've got a good running game, and help Aaron Rodgers at this late stage in his career, taking at least some of the pressure off the injured shoulders in the past of number 12.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is you have to have the rest of the team in place. And we saw with Kansas City a couple of years ago when they went down to Tampa Bay and their offensive tackles were injured. Mahomes looked really kind of ordinary there. As you said, to be an NFL general manager in this day and age with the salary cap and all that kind of stuff, trying to put together a complete football team is really, really, really hard. And it's always balancing the cap versus needs and all that kind of stuff. Um, and as I said, with your draft this year, you get guys who I don't believe are going to be impact players necessarily, but they're two really good, solid players. Particularly Walker, who's going to fill a hole at middle linebacker, get a lot of things there. And I like some of your later round picks, as I said, particularly on the offensive line, that you get a real new infusion, especially on the interior. But again, it's a balancing act for a general manager on any team, and even a little bit more pressure in Green Bay, because I mean you have to know that the time for Aaron Rodgers is kind of running out at some point in time.
What was remarkable about last season, although it ended in a disappointing manner, losing to San Francisco because of a kind of a special teams breakdown, but the Packers' best players all seemed to go down last year, and especially in the offensive line. David Bakhtiari blew his ACL, and he could only play one game at the end of the year. Jenkins, their top-notch, probably some consider him the best offensive lineman the Packers have had since Forrest Gregg, because he could be all pro at 5 offensive line positions. So they had a lot of injuries. Even Turner went down with a knee injury late in the year, and they were able to plug and play and mix and match. And I thought it was interesting looking back at this draft that the Packers drafted 3 offensive linemen. All of them are offensive tackles who could possibly play multiple positions. So, Bakhtiari, it's not a sure thing that those players come back from ACL surgery. But in the 3rd round, they took Sean Ryan from UCLA. Then they took Rasheed Walker from Penn State in the 7th round. And then they took Zach Tom from Wake Forest, kind of the offensive guard who can play tackle. Could you talk about those players for a minute?
Yeah, no, I like all 3. They all played left tackle in college, if not full time. They certainly played some significant snaps there. Of those 3 guys, the guy I really like is Zach Tom. Kind of really does remind me of a Bakhtiari kind of a player. He's not going to impress you at the weigh-in. He's not all that big. And he's not a road grader in any way, shape, or form, but he's just a really good, solid, technical football player, really good feet, good athlete. He has a little bit of a nasty streak there, and I could see him ending up playing left tackle very much the way Bakhtiari ended up over there. The other 2 guys, Sean Ryan, again, played left tackle, good career out at UCLA. He's a big guy, 320 pounds. Not the most athletic guy, doesn't run all that well. Probably going to start at right tackle. And my guess is he's going to end up kicking inside very much like John Runyon has. And I thought Rasheed Walker was, I don't call him one of the steals of the draft, but I mean, he was projected to go much, much higher. I think closer to a 4th round type of guy. He's the one guy who really actually does look like an offensive tackle. He's 6'5", 6'5" and a half. He's got long arms. He played a game. He was a career left tackle at Penn State. It doesn't move all that well. Just a very physical guy in a box, and probably also going to start out at right tackle. Could also move inside. And you actually added a couple other guys in free agency who kind of fit that bill. Caleb Jones, an athletic guy. You get the big kid from I believe it was Indiana. I'd have to look at my notes over here, but he's just a huge, massive kid. So you added some bodies there. I can see all 3 guys having good, useful careers in the National Football League. Not likely going to be stars, but you don't need stars on your offensive line. Good, solid players, good run blockers. And as I say, they were left tackles, so they all can pass block to some degree. So, as I say, a nice job of reinforcing that the interior of the offensive line.
Colin, I'm thinking that people are just alarmed because Devontae Adams leaves, MVS is gone, but we forget that you have the versatile and I think a real smart player, though on the downside of his career, in Randall Cobb. You have the underrated, steady Alan Lazard, and then they get Christian Watson. I'm intrigued by Romeo Doubs, the receiver they draft out of Nevada in the 4th round. What is your take on Romeo Doubs?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he was one of those guys that you heard rumblings about, whispers about, hey, this is a good kid. He doesn't do anything special. He's not huge. He's not real fast, although he's got decent speed. And it's hard to classify him. He's not really a possession receiver, but he's not certainly not a big play type guy, not a great yards after catch guy. So, but just a good, solid all around football player. Had over 1,000 yards last year. Knows how to get open. He isn't going to beat real tough press coverage, but you put him out there as a 3rd, 4th receiver. And I'm not sure the whole lot of teams around the National Football League are going to have a cornerback who can match up against him. So again, he's going to be a real nice complementary guy, and I think he's got some upside. He was very productive in college, and again, another nice pick where he was taken.
Colin Linsey from the Great Blue North Draft Report. He was as advertised, John, just absolutely marvelous. And, none of this happens without Business Fitness. We appreciate them very much. And there are some people saying some great things about Dave Heineck's biz.
Learn moved to NetSuite after using a very simple QuickBooks platform. Because we work in a nonprofit, our resources are limited, so it makes sense for Learn to partner with a company like Business Fitness that pretty much, in our instance, acts as just an administrator for NetSuite. They're always available. They're more familiar with it. It was very easy for me to have an idea and just let them know, hey, I'm thinking about this record or this form, and they were able to easily go in, take my idea, and then make it something where I could use almost immediately. Since we have a bi-weekly meeting set up with the Business Fitness team, we're able to talk about things, kind of pressure points that we're having or things that we think would be better to move into NetSuite. No project, no request is too small or too big that I've found in the last 2.5 years that we've worked with them. So I've actually recommended them to other organizations similar to Learn in other states.
Thanks for tuning in to the Green Bay Football Show. For the great Jason Ruck and our marvelous John Dodds, I'm Tom Pippins. This has been fun, hasn't it?
It is. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again next Saturday at 10 a.m. on My 24. See you next time, everybody. God bless and go Pack.